Mr. Brasfield would be so kind.
Good afternoon, family, friends. I'm Hope Landis. Everybody calls me Brad. I'm Brad Brasfield. I am a member of Local 216, Southgate, California. Local 216 of the UAW, Southgate, California, which is the same local that Harold Dunn was a member of. He eventually became my president. I'd like to give you a sit down, I'll take a little while. Here I am directing the family. That's not being too kind. And I want to speak about a friend of mine. But I met Harold Dunn in 1955. About 58 years ago. Harold was the recording secretary of the local union back then. I was just a rank and file member. But I was union orientated. Every union meeting I had to attend because that was the mentality of our household. We had to go to union meetings and we had to participate. Not only did I participate in the local leadership, I was eventually rewarded for it because, like Harold Dunn, I was eventually appointed to the staff as an international representative of the UAW. But before being appointed to the staff, Harold was functioning as recording secretary and is in the local. And as his daughter has mentioned, he was very articulate. He could explain whatever the situation was. We had any number of caucuses in our local, and they weren't friendly toward one another. They were fighting for the leadership roles. Whoever won out, they had it then for 2 years because we had 2-year elections at that time. And Harold was the secretary, and whenever it was difficult for the president to explain to a member of the opposition caucus as to what was going on in the local union or what was going on with the company, Harold Dunn would reach over and take the mic, and he would provide an explanation as to what had just taken place. He would provide an answer to the extent that it was satisfactory to the opposition caucus. The man was good with words back then, and when I learned later that Harold was about to go back to school in order to get his degree, it kind of puzzled me because I thought he already had his degree. The way that he expressed himself, not only with the union, but with the General Motors Corporation. The man was great. One of the things that was a real stepping stone for Harold Dunn was Harold ended up becoming he ran for the election. He became vice president of Local 216 in Southgate. There was a young man that was about Harold's age at the same time that ran for president. He too was very articulate. He too was well learned. He had another downfall, or he had a situation that he had in his life that caused Harold to use it as a stepping stone. We had 3 shifts at the Southgate plant. And the first shift ended at 3:30 in the afternoon. And when that shift would end, we had a union membership meeting for that shift. Subsequently, the second shift would meet, and we could get off at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, immediately following the 2 o'clock shift, we would hold a new meeting. third shift, we had a third shift leader. Well, this individual that was elected as president, his downfall was that it was alcohol. We had a watering hole across the street from the plant, and right down 2 or 3 doors from the local union hall was called the back door. And this president went to the back door. And he stayed at the bar too long, and when he came back to the local union hall, he was inebriated. They sent him back in the executive board room, and he went to sleep. Time for the second shift executive board meeting. He's still back there trying to sleep it off. The meeting had to be convened. So the meeting was convened by the vice president. Who was the vice president? Harold Dunn. Harold, what happened to the president? He said, oh, he was not feeling well. He's a little sleepy. He's back in the boardroom, so I'm certain he'll feel okay before the meeting is over. He didn't talk down about it. He didn't even share with them what the situation was. And that went on for the next 2 or 3 meetings. But somehow or another, it leaked out that the president had a problem with alcohol. And the president was forced to resign. Well, under Article 38, Section 14 of the Constitution of the International Union, UAW, that is the only position, the executive officer position, that when a vacancy occurs as president, the vice president will automatically move up. So once the president of Local 216 resigned, Harold Dunn immediately became president of Local 216. He demonstrated all of the qualities of leadership that one would expect in the position that he had been elevated to. He did it well. And like Dorothy mentioned sometime earlier, we had a wildcat strike. He provided leadership there to the extent that we didn't lose a lot of people where they were being discharged as a result of wildcat. Because we had division in the collective bargaining agreement, which provided that if in fact you have a problem, you had to work it out through the grievance procedure, or if not, you then had the right to strike, but there were certain procedures that you had to follow in order to work to that end. Harold Dunn was successful in negotiating to make certain that all of those of us that were out there on the wildcat strike, none of us lost our job. So the leadership that he provided at Local 216, it amplified throughout the UAW. And as Dorothy said, Leonard Woodcock made the recommendation to Walter Reuther that he be placed on the staff of the International Union in the General Motors segment here in Detroit. Harold left and came to Detroit. I was still back there in the local union, but I didn't run for an executive office. I ran in the collective bargaining area. However, after working in the collective bargaining area for several years, I too was given the opportunity to take a position in Washington as a registered lobbyist for the UAW. And I worked there up until the plane crashed with Walter Reuther. And after the plane crashed with Walter, Leonard Woodcock invited me to take a position with the General Motors Department here in Detroit. When I returned to Detroit, I returned to the same department that Harold Dunn was working in. Here we are again, both of us from Local 216, Southgate, California, both of us in the National General Motors Department of the UAW, and both of us were assigned to the review and umpire section of the UAW. General Motors Department. And if you don't know what the review and umpire section of the GM department is, that is when a case has been processed completely through the procedure up to the arbitration level. We call it umpire section in the General Motors segment. So when it gets to the umpire, that's like at the arbitrator. And those of us that had been assigned to that particular department, we were then given the opportunity to review the case, determine if in fact it merited being processed to and argued before the umpire. Harold Dunn and I sat together and argued a number of cases before the umpire. And I want you to know it was a pleasure to me to have the opportunity to work with him, because I can tell you one thing: you must be thorough when you're doing the job for the members, because under the Article 6, Sections 15 and 16 of the Constitution, we as representatives of the members of the UAW are required to represent them and speak for the members as if they were there to speak for themselves. Article 15 says it for the local union level, and Article 16 says it for the international union level. So Harold Dunn was a pleasure sitting there to argue a case beside him. However, when he would decide that he would take a break and turn the chair over to you in order to comment, the problem is Harold had almost said everything he needed to be said, because it was difficult for you to find any additional arguments in order to represent the membership. But I can tell you one thing: during the period of time that Harold Dunn functioned in any capacity that he functioned in the local level, at the national level, he did his job and he did it well. Everyone could say that Harold Dunn had done a great job for him. And I must say that it was a pleasure working with him. When Dorothy asked me if I wanted to say the thing, I said yes. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of your loved one, and thank God for being able to be here today with you. And I'm sorry it's on such a sad day.